high streets have changed beyond recognition over the last 50 years, with those small family-run businesses being replaced by those big chain stores. Now, back at our Valuation Day venue, Milestones Museum, they've recreated some old high streets. Earlier, I went behind the scenes to see how they've rebuilt the past, brick by brick. As the Industrial Revolution raged during the 19th century in Hampshire, the population was drawn to the towns and cities. Along with these newcomers came an explosion of commerce. This changed the profile of the high street from market-based hubs to prolific shopping streets serving every need. By the turn of the century, the high street was absolutely thriving. You could get anything on it. There was a general store, the Co-op, that sold boots and shoes, tea, chocolate, soap, clothing, furniture. There was an ironmonger's. If you wanted to post your letter, you visited the post office. And if you wanted the latest hat, well, you popped in to the milliner's. These shops at Milestones Museum have been inspired by the kinds of businesses that would have existed in towns across Hampshire from Victorian times to the mid-20th century. Others are representations of the original premises, as Joe Bailey, Head of Collections at Hampshire Cultural Trust, explains. So what shops are based on real shops and businesses?
Just round the corner from here, G.W. Willis and Sons, that was a faithful copy of the original, not least because some of the timber work was pulled out of a skip in the 1990s and has been reinstalled into the museum.
Gosh, well, it looks so authentic. Have you used photographs to recreate the facades?
Yes, we have. We've got collections, huge collections of photographs from the towns of Hampshire in our collections that we can use.
So it's as authentic as it can be.
Yes, really. Yes.
Time stood still when you take a walk down the high street here. And I'd imagine these shops would have served the local community.
Yes, yes. I mean, during the Victorian times, Hampshire's towns were growing rapidly. The middle classes were getting much bigger. There were sort of factories opening up in the towns. So lots of people that used to work on the farms were moving into the towns as well, and all becoming customers.
A lot of the work here has relied on volunteers and curators to bring these shops back to life, the Ironmongers being one example. A Basingstoke family-run business established in the late 19th century. It served the new influx of people. Even though many businesses disappeared with the town's redevelopment after the Second World War, kingdoms survived up to the 1970s. One of those who's been working on it here is volunteer and history lover Bob Applin. Bob, I'm pleased to say I'm old enough to remember ironmongers like this. My dad used to take me, right. But you can remember this actual shop. Where was it?
It was in the marketplace in Basingstoke, a prime site, and it was the premier ironmongers in the town. The thing I do remember about the shop is the characteristic smell of paraffin mixed with the smell of dog food or animal feed.
Yes.
And
I'll tell you what else, oil, the smell of oil.
Yes.
You know, because they sold oil as well.
Right,
in those days, it was those cans that squirted out.
That's
Dad
it.
had loads of those.
Yes.
But I'm so pleased this is still here. And it's thanks to dedicated volunteers like you, because places like this wouldn't survive without you guys. Bob and the team are busy fitting out this shop, but there's even more to the museum. There are over 4,500 domestic appliances here, including 200 irons, 52 kettles, and 11 washing machines. That's a lot of housework. Where does this stuff come from?
Well, lots of the sort of social history stuff, the sort of everyday stuff, has actually come through donations from members of the public. Back 100 years, but those ordinary things are actually very special to people because they bring back some really lovely memories of the nostalgia aspect to it.
We can all relate to it. Our grandmas and granddads had it, didn't they? And our mums and dads.
Yes, we hear that comment all the time, you know, oh, I used to have one of those and I'd forgotten all about it.
Yeah.
It's not a museum that's all about kings and queens. There are lots of those that do that very well, but what we do here is about the history of the everyday life.
And that's why they call this a living museum. It's also a place that celebrates its successful homegrown industries. Two names to conjure with are Tuskers, a company which was at the forefront of the 19th century steam engine development, and Thornycroft, which built commercial vehicles in the 20th century. Eventually, the businesses closed. But like the High Street, it wasn't all over.
It seems that these local companies had the foresight to see that their items had a value as pieces of social history. And as early as the 1940s, taskers deliberately started to track down pieces from all over the country. And when Thornycroft closed down, they gave this huge, great big gantry crane. You can see it up there, look. These huge, great big orange girders. They gave all of that, plus their documents, to the museum. It seems that families who invested in their businesses wanted to see this stuff preserved, rather than just memories lost forever. Now, I love the story of this piece. As well as commercial vehicles, Thornycroft also built high-end cars from 1903 to 1912. And this was the Rolls-Royce of the day. And it cost a king's ransom as well, £400, especially to the man who owned this, the local vicar, who had a salary of £120 a year. But he got his comeuppance when he was caught on flagrant delete. Now, that's basically caught in the act with the housemaid. So off went the car. It ended up in America. I don't know what happened to the vicar. But anyway, the car came up for auction in 1993. Sotheby's sold it to the museum. And it came here and it underwent a wonderful restoration project with the rest of the vehicles here. And I think they have done a tremendous job. They really have. £400.
Museums like this, with the significant contribution of local people, do more than preserve the past. They keep a community's memory alive. And there's one vehicle here that epitomises that. This military lorry, known as a J-type and built by Thornycroft in 1916, took men and ammunition to the front line during the First World War.
5,000 of these lorries were made, so it's even more incredible that only a handful have survived. Not only the First World War, but also the intervening 100 years. And that's in thanks to no small part to a dedicated team of experts and volunteers here at the museum who have rebuilt this engine and other parts of this wonderful lorry screw by screw. OK, guys, crank it up.
Fingers crossed.
Now that's what I call people power.